Ooh, that looks tasty. The Lord Ruler may rule this empire with an iron fist, but he is our path to power and wealth, so we must do everything we can to make sure he succeeds. Or not. We could also do everything we could to make sure he's overthrown. Either way, as long as we come out ahead, we'll be happy. Welcome, folks. Today the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we are talking about Mistborn House War, designed by Kevin Wilson and published by Crafty Games. Now, before I begin, please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that is where you'll find those corrections. Now, what House War is it is a negotiation game that takes place in the world of Mistborn, which is I will say a quite good fantasy series by Brandon Sanderson. And in the game, each player is taking on the role of one of the various noble houses in the empire, which is ruled over by this despot, I'll say. It's known as the Lord Ruler. And you're jockeying for position to be the most important house in the empire, or you are trying to arrange it to where you are the least in favor house when the revolution occurs and the Lord Ruler is overthrown. So you will either win by having the most points, or if you manage to have a revolution occur, by having the least points. Now, if you're not interested in how this game is played and just want to jump ahead to my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how this game works. So first of all, every single player is going to have a different house that they are playing, and for those of people who have read the books, you'll recognize a lot of these names. And what's important is on the house, it's going to tell you what your income is each time it comes to your turn, as well as how many cards you get. You'll see that they're all different in different ways, and you can find those resources will be on the board right here. There is a finite number of resources, so you can only have as many as are out there during the game. And then what's going to wind up happening is you're going to start your turn. You will collect your resources in your cards, which again, you can see on your individual house cards. So in this case, House Ilarial would get 1 food, 1 money, 1 prestige, 1 warriors, and 1 ska, like so. And they get to draw a single personality card, which again, you might recognize these types of characters if you are familiar with the IP. Then after you've collected your resources, and I will note that if there aren't enough resources here, you're able to steal from somebody else, then all of the problems are going to get worse. Now, in order to show you that, I'm going to slide the board down, because you can see this is a very long board. You can see you're still not quite all the way to the end, and it still goes even further. But all the problems are going to worsen, which means all the problems on the board are going to slide down 1 place. Now, you'll see right here there's this problems erupt. If a problem ever goes down far enough and crosses that line, the problem erupts. And what that means is you're going to look at the card. In this case, whoever the active player is going to get to choose who gets this penalty. In this case, the Steel Ministry is able to ignore this, but one house is going to gain 5 disgrace, which is 5 negative victory points at the end of the game. And of course, they're all flipped over like that, so whether it's positive points or negative points, they look exactly the same. And there's all kinds of different things that you can get. You might get where you lose resources. You might get something to where you literally permanently lose a resource and you can never gain it again. Or. It's always different. They all do different things. So for example, that's what that one there does. This one here allows you to pick just 1 house to gain 7 disgrace. This one here would take all the problems on the board and they would move down 1 space closer to the problems erupt, and so on and so on. The next thing is you add a new problem. You just flip the top problem over the deck and you put it onto the board. In this case, it says a 1, so it would go right here. But if I were to draw something, well, that's another 1. There we go. So here's a 3rd one. In this case, they're all the 1 slots are filled. You'll notice this is only for 4+ players. So if I was not playing with 4 or 5 players, then this one here would have to slide to the next spot. Well, can't slide there because there's no space, so then it would slide down to the next one like so. After that's done, the active player gets to select a problem to deal with. Now, they have a choice. They can either pick one that's out there and say, we're going to try to deal with this, or all the way over here, you can't quite see it, you can pass the turn, you can take one resource or draw a personality card, and your turn ends immediately. Now, that's a way you can draw resources that you don't actually normally have access to, such as the wild card ATM here. But usually you're going to wind up picking a problem to deal with. So we'll just pretend that we're going to deal with this one here. Now, if this problem is solved, it'll come off the board and it'll be worth 11 points. And to solve it, you look down here, and this is what you need. So in this case, you need 1 food, 2 money, 2 prestige, 2 ska, and 1 warriors. Now, odds are you don't have all of that, but collectively around the table you do. So at that time, you try to deal. You talk with everybody. You decide, okay, well, I can give 2 money if you can give 3 of this, and so on and so on. And the active player gets to decide, do they want to accept any deals, and how the prestige here is going to be divided up amongst the players. And then if you're able to accomplish it, great. If you're not able to make a deal, then you simply pass on to the next player and nothing's going to happen. And I will note that you don't get to draw that free resource like you normally do. Now, this is where the personality cards come into play. And they're all different. They might be a lasting card here, which means it's just going to stay out in front of you. It'll do something at the end of the game. It might be something like this one here, where you wind up getting disgrace instead of favor. It might be one of these that's kind of a play at any time, and you can hopefully kind of see where this is going. It might be something that you're going to do that's going to help you solve the problem. It might be something that you're going to play when you're not even involved in this particular problem to make sure it fails, or whatever. And so there's a little bit of a take that element mixed in there as well. Now, the last thing that I need to point out is sometimes when a problem erupts, it says raise unrest. And unrest is represented by Kelsier here. I will note that there is also a miniature for the active player and the active problem, and a miniature for Kelsier as well, though I find it easier to see these from this top-down view. And every time you add unrest, it's going to move up this track. And if ever you get all the way over here to 8, the game will end. And then the person with the lowest score, when they add up all their favor and disgrace, will be the winner. The other way the game ends is when the hero of the books comes out. When Vin comes out, she starts at 1 and she's going to move across the board. Now, if you are able to solve this problem, the game will end and the person with the highest victory points will win. If the problem of Vin erupts, which adds 4 unrest, the game will also end. And then you're going to look at if you wound up hitting the total of 8 unrest, then the revolution happens and whoever's the lowest score ends. But if, let's say, that only got you up to 7 unrest, it's still going to be the player with the highest amount of points wins. And that's how this game works. You're going to play each round, you're going to be negotiating back and forth, trying to slowly work your way up to where you are the one that has the most favor when the revolution is put down, or the one that is in the most disgrace when the revolution succeeds. So, what do I like about this game? I like, first off, the simplicity of the game. It didn't take me that long to teach you how to play. And what I taught you is most of the game. I know I do rules overviews, and a lot of times I gloss over things, but that's pretty much it. There's a little bit more, but that's pretty much it. And I always, always, always appreciate that with a game that is meant to be played with 3 to 5 players. And this one is meant to be played with 3 to 5. I will admit, I actually played it once with 6 players because there were 6 people there. I said, man, let's just do it and see if it happens. And it actually did work with 6 players. It was a little long in between turns, but we were playing with 6. It says 3 to 5. So that's the kind of the way that works. But it's so quick and easy to teach, because at its core, you're doing one thing. This is a game about negotiation. And there's a few other things in there. There's a little bit of take that and stuff like that, but it's negotiation. And I think the negotiation that it does well. Because if you play with the variant where you choose how much time you have to do your negotiation, which I highly, highly, highly recommend once people know how to play, it moves along fairly quickly. And depending on your group's tolerance for waiting in between turns, so sometimes you're not going to go, you're not going to do anything, and depending on your group's patience, then it can be a quicker or slower game if you set it, say, okay, we only got 1 minute of negotiation every single time we get to the negotiation phase of the game. And so it does move along pretty quickly for a negotiation game if you would like it to, and it's set up to do that, and I really appreciate that. On the other hand, if you're a group that really wants to dive down into negotiations, I mean, bring it in, you know what? Fine, you let me come along, and you're going to give me just over half of the victory points there, and I will bring you a Starbucks. If you want to go into that, you can do that and say, there's no time limit. And I appreciate that it allows you to do just fast and dirty negotiation or long and drawn out, depending on what your group likes, and I appreciate that. I also like how, as the game's going on, you can always see the problems that are out there, and you know that some of them, probably a lot of them, are going to erupt. And so there's this really significant amount of strategizing that you're doing as new problems come out. You're saying, okay, I actually want that to erupt. Because if that erupts when it's supposed to erupt, which will be on my turn, I'm going to get to choose who gets hit with each penalty. And that gives you serious power in that moment. But of course, you can't abuse that power too much, because if you abuse it, everyone else is going to come down on you and say, you're a horrible person, Hungry. Get out of here. We're not bringing you on anything. And then, of course, you've been crippled. At the same time, the game accounts for that too. Because if you play it right or wrong, depending on your perspective, the low score wins the game. Which I love it. I love that, because it has that moment where if you are the person that's just getting crapped on for whatever reason, probably because you're like me and you're obnoxious at the table and no one wants you to win, well, okay, fine. I'll lose and I'll just keep eating the negative points. I'm just going to make sure that the unrest gets so high that the Empire loses and then the good guys, because it's me, wins at the end of the game. And I really like that. I really like that. I like the variety of the different cards in your hand, the in-game scoring cards, the ones that can allow you to just remove someone else's little in-game scoring card they have out there, changing up who gets what kind of rewards or what types of resources are needed, and so on and so on and so on. I really do like that. And along with that, I like the variety of results when problems erupt. It can be as brutal as someone loses the ability to gain resources, or one resource as the resource gets ruined, or it might be someone just gets disgrace points or whatever it is. I really like that as well. So what are my quibbles with the game? And the first one is with the IP. Now, Brandon Sanderson is probably my favorite author. You can see right here, I got the Reckoners right there. Love it. I have listened to and read, well, both read and listened to all of the Stormlight Archive that's out right now. I've read all the Mistborn books. I've read everything he has. I really enjoy his story. I love his world building. I love all of that. But here's the problem. When you read the Mistborn series, also can't wait for the last book to finally come out. When you read the Mistborn series, at no point are you thinking, gosh, I love this book series about house politics. No. Now it's there. And all of it makes sense. And there are the moments in the first book where there is that politicking going on, but that's never the core of the story. The house politicking is something that's kind of in the background and is used as a tool, but especially the first book, it's about Kelsier and it's about Vin. And then, well, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read any of it, but I highly recommend you read them. And the house politicking just doesn't come into it in the way that if I was thinking, let's make a game about this series, that is what I would do. Now, it works. It does make sense, because like I said, that politicking is there. It's just not the part of the story that I would say, oh, if you really like house politics and backstabbing, read this book. Like, I just would never do that. It's not what I would say. So for me, that's a bit of a miss. Then my only other quibble with the game is, it's just what I've just praised. I mean, this is a negotiation game. And it's a negotiation game where almost every turn, somebody's going to have the chance to screw someone else over, whether it's an erupting problem or playing your cards. So it's a pretty mean negotiation game. And truth be told, I don't know of a negotiation game that is meaner. And that's part of the fun.
is that it can be really mean, and it really does capture that house politics of I'm working with you, but you're always looking to stab them in the back, which that is true to the world of the book. But again, it's just such a minor part. But you might not like something like that. You might not want to play a game that is just mean. There you have it, folks. That is Mistborn. I think it's a very fun negotiation game. If you like negotiation and you don't mind being mean, this is a wonderful game for it. I think it does peripherally live in the world of Mistborn, but this is not a game that I play and think, oh yes, that reminds me of Mistborn so much. No, but it does make sense in the world. But so if you have a deep love of this series and this world, and you like the idea of negotiation, then absolutely pick this up. Absolutely, you won't be disappointed in that sense. If you're looking for something that you feel like you're playing the book, this is not it. But there you have it, folks. That is Mistborn from Crafty Games. As always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, let me know in the comments with the timestamp, and I'll get that into the Klingon subtitles. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.